I was privileged to be one of the early directors of Council on Adolescents. I had somehow an opportunity to continue meeting with the folks from DSS and Public Health, and a consortium was formed and a decision was made to apply to the state for funding. And I remember sitting with Linda Robinette, who was a social worker, at our kitchen table to get more information about this grant. And they asked me what the name of our organization was, and we said, we're the Catawba County Kitchen Table Coalition on Teen Pregnancy Prevention. And from that, I guess we were born. We continued to meet with important people, and with the support of social services and the health department, an application was made. We received a miraculous amount of $50,000, and so in 1985 we actually were incorporated. From that point, council, we were able to hire folk. Our first director was Pat Jones, who was, I believe at the time, had been working with Fry Regional Medical Center. I think she ultimately went back there. And so with the funds that we got, we established an amazingly large library and began doing just small little bits of information into the community. I became director in 1990, and then had the opportunity to be that director until 2007 when I retired the first time. And during that time, there was a lot of growth, not only in our programming, but also in our other outreach. We added, the first thing that we added, we dropped the postponing sexual involvement to 8th grade, and then began a 5th grade program because that was requested by elementary educators, separating boys from girls and just talking. I then added a 9th grade program, which it was on the relationships. I think that still continues as one of the programs. And then depending upon the school system, we altered the programs to include 5th through 9th grade, so that there was a progression from very basic, just body changes, to a more relational kinds of things and protection kind of thing. I remember that in 1983, when we had our first statistical information, that we had 17 young women under the age of 14 who had pregnancies in Catawba County. With that being said, in 1990, the Department of Social Services initiated an initiative with Senator Allran to raise the age of consent to 16. He received tremendous pushback across the state, but ultimately, I think it was passed at the end of 1990 that the age of consent would be raised into 16. The idea being that if a person was 4 or more years older than that, then it would be considered statutory rape. Council on Adolescents received a wonderful gift of being able to administer an advertising campaign, and we received money to do so, to publish posters, publish brochures, and to disseminate to all 100 counties in North Carolina information about the new law. It took a lot of time, and but we were very fortunate that at that time also we were able to get from the state data that indicated how many incidents of statutory rape there were in each county, and we disseminated that in the packets that we sent to all of the counties in the state. That information I don't believe is still available for the current population. That brought us some recognition across the state. It also caused some pushback about what we were doing. And we were so fortunate because there were many members of our community that supported the work of the council through this time, which otherwise could have been very frustrating and painful for us and for the success of our programs. Through the alliances that we made during the sexuality challenges and with family situations that evolved in 1994, 1995, we worked again with Senator Allram to provide legislation that would increase penalties to adults who provided alcohol to minors. Prior to that legislation, folks who either gave alcohol to kids, bought it for the children to use, received virtually no penalty at all. And through his work, the penalty required a payment of, I believe it was $250, and then so many hours of community service, which was a huge step. And I'm not sure that it has successfully reduced the use of alcohol among children now, but it certainly was a way of promoting the idea that this was not a healthy behavior and that adults needed to take responsibility. A similar effort happened after several automobile accidents involving young people who had gotten their driver's license but had not had any real experience driving, so that close to 2000, in fact I think it was the last legislation that was passed in 1990. So about 2000, we started the Teen Council, which I went to the high schools which we were already serving and said, I want your B team. Those young people who really want to talk and have the ideas, but don't necessarily get the credit for it. Our Teen Council each year chose a project, worked on the project, and some of these were just absolutely amazing because they came from the voice of where the children saw concerns. One was a booklet that was for young people who had lost a parent and talked about the grief process for a young teen. And the kids did a lot of research about what happened through the grief process, especially as how it affected teenagers. Another one was a survival guide in which they identified and alphabetized different concerns the teens had and defined them, and then gave resources at the end, and the kids did all the research themselves. The resources that locally were available for teenagers if they needed it. So these were then some of the different ways in which the council in the 20 years that I had the opportunity to work with the kids and the staff were able to serve the community. And I am still in touch with some of those folk, the kids. They're now amazing adults doing very creative things. And statistically, we need to look at what's happening with has happened with teen pregnancy. Through the 80s and up through 1990, we saw a steady increase in the number of teen pregnancies that we were able to document. In 1990, it seems to me as if there were like about almost 500 teen pregnancies in Catawba County. I think I remember in 1983 when we really started talking about it that there were 17 pregnancies to young women under the age of 14. The thing that was most remarkable is that after 1990, and to the credit of the council and that triumvirate of agencies that I have mentioned, from council to DSS to the health department, we began to see a decrease in teen pregnancy. So from that almost 500 in 1990, I remember almost feeling a gasp of excitement when it was revealed that in 2023 there were only 93 teen pregnancies, and those were documented. And those were, I believe, to 15 to 19-year-olds. So when you think about 18 and 19-year-olds, those folk, it's questionable to me whether or not that needs to be in the count, because many 18 and 19-year-olds are in stable, very long-term relationships. So the question is, why does an organization like the council need to continue? As long as we have teenagers, as long as there are young people who need someone to listen to them and someone who understands the changes that they're going on, Council on Adolescents needs to continue. We will have teenagers as long as we have people producing children. And those children will go through transitions, and those children will have questions, and those children will question whether or not they can trust their parents, or may not even be able to find their parents, or if the information on social media is relevant and appropriate, and they will seek sources, and those sources need to be authoritative. But they also need to be supportive, and they also need to be caring. And research tells us that one caring person can make a difference in a young person's life. And that's why you need the Council on Adolescents, because the council staff and those who work with the council, even as mentors, care. But it is that mutual fund that supports the future. It's just been an honor to be able to say I was part of the Council on Adolescents.